It was just after 4:30 a.m. when the tracking app on Sade Robinson's phone abruptly went dark. Earlier that evening, she had left work filled with excitement for her first date with a man she had recently met. By sunrise, her car was engulfed in flames, and along the shores of Lake Michigan, something unimaginable awaited discovery. The events that transpired during those lost hours would send shockwaves through an entire city and unveil a nightmare that no one anticipated. Sade Robinson was born in 2004 in Beesburg, Mississippi, the only child of China Scarborough and Carlos Robinson. Her life took a significant turn early on. When she was just a year old, her parents separated. Sade moved with her mother to Milwaukee, where they settled into her grandparents' home. This city would serve as the backdrop for her formative years, nurturing her vibrant personality. From the beginning, Sade stood out, curious, energetic, and eager to learn about the world around her. Whether playing soccer or participating in the Girl Scouts, she approached every activity with enthusiasm. These early experiences not only allowed her to shine, but also helped cultivate her natural skills in leadership, teamwork, and discipline. Despite her father living in Florida, Sade maintained a close relationship with him. Frequent visits became a routine part of her life, fostering a rare sense of independence and responsibility at a young age. As she matured, Sade's passions began to crystallize. She was drawn to the arts, particularly rap music and dance, where she could express herself freely. However, her aspirations extended beyond the creative realm. She harbored a deep desire to serve her country and envisioned a future in the armed forces. Academically, Sade was a standout student, known for her focus and determination. Yet she faced challenges as well. During 7th grade, she encountered difficulties at school, the specifics of which remained private. In search of a fresh start, she bravely decided to relocate to Florida to live with her father. Once again, Sade demonstrated resilience in her new environment, excelling both socially and academically. Teachers and peers admired her ambition and quiet confidence, rooted in strength rather than pride. In 2019, after several years in Florida, Sade returned to Milwaukee to live with her mother. By her final year of high school in 2021, she dedicated herself to her studies, graduating a semester early, yet another testament to her unwavering determination. By 2024, at just 19 years old, Sade Robinson embodied a rare blend of discipline, ambition, and independence. She was pursuing a degree in art at Milwaukee Area Technical College while balancing 2 full-time jobs. Her aspirations didn't end there. She had already set her sights on a future in criminal law. Through hard work and careful saving, Sade achieved a significant milestone. She bought her own car. This vehicle represented her growing independence. Shortly after, she moved out of her mother's home and rented her own apartment, managing 2 demanding jobs to support herself. One of her jobs was at Pizza Shadow, where her work ethic and initiative quickly earned her a promotion to manager. Her second job was at the prestigious Wisconsin Country Club, where she also helped her younger sister secure a position, ensuring her sibling had access to the same opportunities that had shaped her own path. Sade was not just building a life for herself, she was paving the way for those she loved. At that moment, her future appeared incredibly bright. She had clear goals, the discipline to pursue them, and a maturity that surpassed many twice her age. Yet, beneath that strength and focus, Sade still harbored the hopes of any young woman her age, dreams of love, companionship, and meaningful connections. What she never anticipated was that this search would lead her into the most perilous moment of her life. April 1st, 2024, began like any other day for Sade. She started her morning shift at Pizza Shadow, and, as was her routine, took a few moments before work to catch up with her mother over FaceTime. Everything about the day felt ordinary until her shift ended. Sade was thrilled. She had a date planned with a man she had recently met through a dating app. She left work to meet him, marking the last time anyone in her circle would see or hear from her again. The following day, April 2nd, Sade failed to show up for her shift. Her absence was immediately noted. She hadn't called in sick or left a message, which was completely out of character. Concern quickly spread among her coworkers, who began texting and calling her phone, hoping for an explanation, but no reply came. Her family and close friends also grew worried, as none had heard from her since the day before. As hours passed without word, worry turned to panic. Those closest to her sensed something was amiss. This wasn't just a missed call. It was a chilling silence that didn't make sense. As night fell with still no answers, one of Sade's friends made the difficult but necessary decision to contact the police and report her missing. Before doing so, she checked Sade's most recent social media activity and found something crucial: a Snapchat post indicating that Sade had been at a place called Duke's, time-stamped around 9 p.m. on the night of April 1st. This would be the last digital trace she left behind. On April 3rd, with no updates and growing concern, police officers visited Sade's apartment. They knocked on the door, but there was no answer, no sounds from within. What no one knew at that moment was that elsewhere in the city, authorities had made a horrifying discovery. At around 7:30 a.m. on April 2nd, 2024, the Milwaukee Fire Department received a report from local residents about a car on fire. When emergency crews arrived, they found a 2020 Honda Civic engulfed in flames. The vehicle had been abandoned and was burning rapidly. Firefighters managed to contain the blaze, but no one was inside the car. When they opened the trunk, what they discovered raised immediate concern: a black coat, a pair of ripped jeans, and other women's clothing, charred but still identifiable. A cell phone was also recovered, partially damaged by heat. Authorities now had physical evidence but needed to determine who the car belonged to. That answer would soon come, and it would change everything. Later that same day, Milwaukee County Sheriff's deputies were called to a different location. A man waiting for a friend had been walking along the edge of the park's beach when he stumbled upon something horrifying: a human leg lying near the shoreline. Forensic teams were called in, and after careful analysis, they determined the leg belonged to an African-American female. The remains were dismembered, but the condition of the limb suggested the crime had occurred recently. As the investigation into Sade's disappearance continued, one of the officers who had earlier visited her apartment learned of the discovery of human remains. The physical description of the remains, a petite African-American woman, closely matched the details provided in the missing persons report for Sade. Then a second chilling confirmation arrived. The Honda Civic found burning that morning was registered to Sade Robinson. With the pieces beginning to fall into place, detectives returned to her apartment. They spoke with the building's maintenance worker, who revealed he had seen Sade on the morning of April 1st. She seemed excited, looking forward to her date after work. Investigators pulled the building's surveillance footage, which showed Sade leaving her apartment at 9 a.m. on April 1st. She never returned. That footage, combined with the evidence from the car and the park, created an urgent new direction for the case. Authorities subpoenaed her phone records from her mobile carrier and traced her last text message sent to a number with a 262 area code. They didn't yet know who the number belonged to, but the content of the exchange made it clear it was the man she had planned to meet that night. Using that lead, police began cross-referencing phone data with surveillance. It soon emerged that Sade and her date had met at a local venue called the Twisted Fisherman. Footage from the bar and witness statements from staff confirmed their presence at the location that evening. Another key piece of evidence came from the same friend who had filed the missing persons report. She revealed that she had access to Sade's location through an app called Life 360, commonly used to track friends and family in real time. According to the app's log, The last known location for Sade Robinson was Warner Mond Park at 4:30 a.m. on April 2nd. A clearer timeline began to take shape. Investigators learned that she was originally scheduled to meet her date at 5 p.m. on April 1st at a place called Brad House. However, at the last minute, the man changed the location to the Twisted Fisherman, a bar where he had previously worked, claiming he needed to stop by to pick up some paperwork. Sade had no objections. At 5:20 p.m., she arrived at the Twisted Fisherman, where he was already waiting at the bar. The two sat side by side, ordered drinks and food, and chatted casually as the evening unfolded. Just over an hour later, they left the bar together, got into Sade's car, and drove to a second location, Duke's, another bar. They spent roughly 3 hours at Duke's before heading to a residential neighborhood in southwestern Milwaukee, where they remained for several more hours. At some point in the early morning hours of April 2nd, Sade's phone showed movement again, this time heading toward Warner Park. At 4:35 a.m., her Life 360 tracking app went silent. The battery had died. That was the last signal the phone would ever send. The mounting evidence led investigators to a grim realization. This was no longer a missing persons case. It was a homicide. All signs pointed to one horrifying conclusion. Sade Robinson had been murdered, and the person she had trusted enough to meet that night was now the prime suspect. Thanks to swift and coordinated work by law enforcement, the investigation progressed rapidly. Authorities had already zeroed in on one individual. Though his name was still unknown to the public, police knew he was the last person to see Sade alive. The evidence they had gathered was sufficient to obtain both an arrest warrant and a search warrant for the residence traced from Sade's phone activity. On April 4th at 1 p.m., officers moved in, arriving at the suspect's home and taking him into custody. His identity was finally confirmed. Maxwell Anderson, a 33-year-old man and the son of a well-known businessman in the region. Following his arrest, disturbing details about his background began to emerge. Throughout his life, Anderson had exhibited a pattern of problematic behavior. His father had once tried to help him by giving him a position in the family business, but eventually fired him, stating he was unfit for the job. Anderson was also a U.S. Navy veteran, but in recent years he had drifted from one job to another, primarily working as a bartender in various establishments across Milwaukee. None of the positions lasted long. Between 2014 and 2019, he had multiple arrests on record, mostly for minor offenses such as public disorder and disturbances. Investigators worked to determine exactly how Sade and Anderson first met. The initial assumption was that they had connected through a dating app, but another theory surfaced. They may have crossed paths in person at one of the bars where Anderson had worked, locations that Sade and her friends were known to frequent. Following Maxwell Anderson's arrest, detectives launched an extensive search of his residence. What they found inside confirmed their worst fears. In one of the bedrooms, investigators discovered bloodstains on the bedding and on a wall leading down to the basement. That area, they soon realized, held even more disturbing clues. Inside the basement, they located multiple gas canisters and electric saws, items that raised immediate suspicion. The basement wasn't just a storage area. It appeared to have been prepared for something dark, something planned. This space, now a central point in the investigation, suggested that the crime against Sade had been both premeditated and executed with chilling precision. The search for evidence did not stop there. On April 6th, just days after the house search, investigators returned to the area where Sade's burned car had been discovered. Just 1 block away, they made another gruesome find, a human foot. Forensic analysis confirmed what everyone feared. The skin tone, size, and pink nail polish matched the severed leg recovered earlier. It belonged to Sade. Meanwhile, detectives continued to comb through surveillance footage near the scene of the car fire. It was here they uncovered a critical piece of evidence. Security cameras captured Maxwell Anderson stepping out of Sade's Honda Civic moments before setting it ablaze. Several bystanders in the area at the time later identified him as the man responsible. After starting the fire, Anderson was seen calmly walking away and boarding a nearby bus. But perhaps the most chilling revelation came from a key witness who knew Anderson personally. Alarmed by the news of Sade's disappearance, the individual went straight to the police. What they shared would reshape the investigation entirely. 1 month before the crime, on March 5th, Anderson had allegedly described a plan to lure a woman to his basement, shoot her, dismember her body, and scatter the remains across the city. At the time, it seemed like a disturbing joke. In retrospect, it was a blueprint. The witness went on to describe a visit to Anderson's house just days before the murder. The basement, they said, was covered in plastic sheeting. There were 3 saws in plain view, a large tarp, and an area that appeared staged with intimate objects, further suggesting the calculated nature of the crime. This discovery set off even more alarms, leading authorities to fear there could be additional victims. They began re-examining other reports linked to Anderson. In February 2024, a woman came forward claiming that after meeting Anderson at a bar, he invited her to his home. However, once there, she began to feel unwell, leading her to suspect he had drugged her drink. She escaped before anything happened, and that escape may have saved her life. With mounting evidence, physical, digital, and testimonial, the prosecution built a powerful case. The level of premeditation, the brutality of the act, and the effort to destroy evidence pointed to one clear conclusion. On April 12th, just 10 days after Sade Robinson vanished, Maxwell Anderson was formally charged with first-degree homicide, mutilation of a corpse, and arson to conceal a crime. Though Anderson continued to claim innocence, the case against him was overwhelming. On the morning of June 6, 2025, the courtroom in Milwaukee was silent and tense. Families, reporters, and community members filled every seat. After months of grief, outrage, and unanswered questions, the moment had finally arrived. The jury had reached its decision. It took less than a day of deliberation. By 9 a.m. the next morning, their verdict was ready. When the judge called the room to order, everyone held their breath. Maxwell Anderson was found guilty on all counts: first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, hiding a corpse, and arson. It was official. The man who had lured 19-year-old Sade Robinson on a first date, only to brutally kill and dismember her, was now legally responsible for one of the most horrifying crimes Milwaukee had ever seen. The trial had laid bare every excruciating detail. Jurors were shown hundreds of surveillance images and forensic photographs. They listened to the testimony of dozens of witnesses. They saw snapshots of Sade in her final hours, alive, vulnerable, and unaware of the fate awaiting her. The prosecutor made the case clear. Sade was killed inside Anderson's home. He later dismembered her body, scattering her remains, legs, arms, torso, even her right breast, across counties, some found in the lake, others washed ashore. In an attempt to erase it all, he set her car ablaze and walked away without looking back. Outside the courthouse, Sade's mother stood beneath a gray sky surrounded by friends and supporters, many dressed in pink, her daughter's favorite color. "She will be forever remembered as an angel," she said. Her voice was steady, but her eyes carried the weight of unimaginable loss. "Even now, Sade speaks to me. She's still guiding me. Her mission to help others isn't over." Maxwell Anderson never took the stand. His defense presented no witnesses. His attorney argued there was no premeditation, but the evidence told a different story, one that began on a seemingly ordinary night and ended in unthinkable violence. Sade Robinson had dreams. She was studying at Milwaukee Area Technical College, working 2 jobs, building a life. That life was stolen. And now, finally, there was accountability. Sentencing is scheduled for August 15th, But for her loved ones, the real sentence is something far greater: life without her. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.